see the way they hate. And I know better than to listen to the people who are calling us slaves. I can feel the sunlight shining.
Well, good evening. How's everybody doing this evening? Special episode, I guess, of lots to talk about, or Strong Roots Resources Friday Night Live. It's a combination episode. Carrie reached out, was wanting to have a chat about some experiences we've had in the last 2 weeks or so. We spent a bunch of time together. We did some projects together, and then Carrie had an experience all on his own that he thought he would like to get off his chest and discuss a little bit about what happened, and a gentle reminder for anybody that tunes in and listens, because I think we all need it every once in a while, and the other night proved it. So here we are. And before I was like, I don't know if I'm what I should play. Should I play just my intro music? And as soon as it started playing, I was like, yeah, fuck the police. So might as well get that out of the way first. Just drop that first F-bomb. I think everybody that's tuning into this knows who you are. It's on your channel, it's on my channel, but Carrie from Strong Roots Resources, welcome to Lots to Talk About, and your own show. Welcome to your own show.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for teaming up with me tonight, because I wanted to talk about this, but I kind of wanted it to be a conversation instead of me just ranting at the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out a language warning. Most folks know, like on my own channel, I try to be a little bit measured, but I don't feel like being measured tonight. So my sailor mouth may run free. So if you tend to listen to this on my Friday night show and you got little ones around and you don't want them to learn creative new words, perhaps catch it on the replay when you can put your earbuds in. So because I had a stressful experience.
Yeah, it's okay for my channel. I'll allow it tonight. We'll let a few fly tonight, and that's it. Not ever again though.
Right. We'll be real good after this.
Right. Till Monday morning, when I fired it up at 6 a.m. with a geez, oh man, my fucking truck this weekend.
Yep.
Oh, so tons of comments here, but I mean, let's start off with your story there and see where that takes us, and then if we want to circle back to what we got done out at Tim's, and then SRF, we can. If it takes the whole hour, we'll burn it up with talking about cops. So I can let everybody know you were driving home from SRF. Corey and I looked for you right after the drawing, and you misappeared. You were there, and then you weren't. And then I get a message later that evening. I got a story for you, is what the message said. I'm like, I'm getting ready for bed because it's been like 5 days of no sleep. And you said it can wait for morning. So when we talked in the morning, fill everybody else in, because I was, just go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, I ghosted at the end of SRF, pulled one of my famous Irish goodbyes because I was hot. I was tired. I had not had a proper shower in about 3.5 days. And I was just ready to go home. And looking back on it, perhaps it would have served me had I left a little bit sooner or maybe a little bit later, and I would not have run into this scenario. But I was passing through Smith County, which is very close to Nicole's spot there near Lancaster. And, you know, we're well after dark at this point. And I see the, I don't know if this is like a quote unquote police officer or sheriff's deputy or what difference it makes, but it was a law enforcement official. And I saw him like in the median, you know, hanging out between the guardrails, and didn't think too much of it because, you know, I'm in a Jeep, I'm doing 5 miles an hour under the speed limit because it's a Jeep. And, I'm pulling this trailer and everything, and my headlights aren't the greatest. So I'm just tooling down the road like a normal individual in the right lane. And all of a sudden he was behind me with all the lights on, and not just the light. It's like, dude, it's dark. I can see you. Okay. But he's like, whap, 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 playing with the little siren button. And, I'm sure most people know, but I had a career in EMS, and we had terms for people who like to play with the siren, and we're all tore up about how important they were in the realm of, EMS or law enforcement or fire department. We call those people squirrels. Sometimes we call them super squirrels. Well, I got pulled over by the police officer version of one of these. So I did, I remember to do all the smart stuff, pull off as soon as I could, turn on the interior lights, roll down my window, not the driver's window, because that window doesn't work. So I rolled down the passenger driver's side, put my hands on the steering wheel and all that good stuff. And he walks up to the car and identified himself, and of course his name immediately just left, like entered my brain, and then just took off. So I don't remember the guy's name now. And he said immediately, the reason I pulled you over is because you have no lights on your trailer. And this is where I began mistake number one. So I'm gonna take responsibility for screwing up quite a bit in this interaction. And that is, I started to talk instead of just handing over my documents and keeping my trap shut. And I said, well, I was pretty sure that you, trailers under 80 inches of width and under, I think it's like 10 feet, don't require trailer lights. Pretty sure I looked up that ordinance. And he said, well, I don't know who told you that, but that's not true. And I said, well, okay. I said, well, I'll be sure to get that taken care of then. And I meant it, and I was calm and I was nice about it. So we go from that, where I'm expecting either, a warning or even for him to go back and write me a ticket. Like, fine, I broke the law. I don't have lights on my trailer, even though you can see the Jeep tail lights just fine. Mesh gate and all that kind of good stuff. It's not like you can't see. And so I kind of, sat there for a second, and he said, well, is there, he pretty much immediately asked to search the Jeep. If I recall the sequence of events, which in my stressed out state are a little bit jumbled up, but like very quickly, he was like, is there anything that shouldn't be in this vehicle? Anything illegal in this vehicle? And my existence, apparently.
No, the cops.
And yeah. It's like that meme where you see the TWRA guy standing in the boat, and what anything that shouldn't be in your boat. Yeah, you. So, and I hesitated to answer because I was thinking at this point, well, is there? Because it was like, I'm not privy to every single law of this jurisdiction. So how do I know that perhaps, I thought about like the machete that's in a case that is, with some of my camp gear. And, I'm like, well, I was like, to my knowledge, no. And then I thought about the bag of hemp that I have that was actually on the trailer, not in the Jeep, but in a box on the trailer. And I said, well, it's not illegal, but I have some, some Tennessee grown hemp in a box on my trailer. Again, and anybody, who knows how to deal with the cops right now is screaming at me to Carrie, shut the hell up. Carrie, shut the hell up. Well, at this point, my thinking at this point was, I'm a reasonable human being. I'm assuming that I am dealing with another reasonable human being. That was also an error looking back on it. And if I just explain that, hey, this is not quote unquote marijuana, it's hemp that came from a farm that is, they pay the permit, they're registered, they get the testing and make sure it's under 0.3% THC and all this stuff. And we'll be cool. And that was just and perhaps I'm a little bit naive, because for, for background, I used to do a little bit of like direct action type stuff. And this would be things like if the, I did like anti-war protests where we were just holding signs, and usually whoever was leading those kind of things, we had some kind of, hey, if you are arrested for whatever, blocking a sidewalk is usually the one they would use. Here's how you deal with the cops. And it always starts with shut the hell up. So it's like I've been through these trainings, but it's been a long time. And it just all just immediately took off out of my head. And I just thought I could, by communicating clearly and honestly, I could resolve the situation. That was what my brain was telling me. So at this point, he has me step out of the vehicle and has me standing in front of his car, starts going through that bin because now he has probable cause to search the contents of that trailer and my car. And so he pulls this bag out and he just grabs it. Oh, and by the way, he's got the dog with him. And more than once he says, I've got the dog with me. I can let the dog, basically sniff around. And I think that was when I was like, okay, I've got this hemp. And because I'm thinking the dog's going to go to that because dogs are really smart. I know, but do they don't know the difference between CBD hemp and, Delta 8?
I don't know what scent they hit on.
I don't know. So he pulls that bag out and it's like a quart bag. So it's a lot. It was just one of those things where I was packing for the trip and I thought, oh, you know what? I like some of this tea to relax at night after I have been around people all day. And since I don't consume alcohol, that's kind of my go-to. And he grabs it and he's like, this is marijuana. And I said, well, it's not. And I can't prove it right this instant, but I will be able to prove it. Because it had a couple of stickers on it from my friend who I got it from. He had like extra that they hadn't packaged in their official packaging with the labeling and everything. And he had just given me that. Traded him some plants for it. Like 3 years ago. This hemp has been in a box because he gave me like 3 bags that size. It takes me forever to go through it. So I had just had them sealed up in a box in my shop / kitchen out here, which is exposed to every temperature between about 0 degrees and 115 degrees. And he insists that it is marijuana. And I said, it's not. And eventually I will be able to prove that, even if I can't tonight. So he goes digging around the rest of my stuff. Around this time, another officer arrives and he frisks me, he searches me, and I empty my pockets and everything, and I am sitting my butt in the back of his car while he and this other fella go through all my stuff. I got permission to get a hold of my phone. So I call Angel to let her know where I am and what I'm up to. As I didn't want to, because I didn't want to worry her, but I thought, if this really gets sideways, I want somebody to know where to start looking for me. And then as soon as I talk to her, I also text Nicole, and Nicole gets like these 5 texts in a row that basically say, because I can see a mile marker sign. So I'm like, this is where I am. This is what's going on. I may need help. I may, I don't know if I'm going to get arrested. I don't know, but and so she immediately provides me with the number of a friend in our community, in the SRF community, whose husband is a lawyer. I'm gonna withhold his name just because I didn't get his permission to mention it, but she put me in touch with them and said, talk to them and get a little bit of guidance for the situation that you're in. So at this point, I've basically got, 4 people who know what's going on, who, at the bare minimum, I'm not going to sit in jail with nobody to come get me out. Let's see. So then we start this thing where he searches the Jeep for a little bit, and then he comes back to the car to begin questioning me further about things that he is finding in the Jeep. So he comes back with a little like single pill box that you can put like 5 or 6 pills in. And there are 2 or 3 pills in there, and they're mostly dissolved because if I recall correctly, they've been hiding in the bottom of the console of the Jeep for who knows how long. One is probably ibuprofen, and the other one looked like a Finnegan for car sickness. And I guarantee I stashed it in there ages ago for Angel because she doesn't ride well. And he said, tell me what these are. And I said, well, I'm really not certain. I told him, I said, that pink oval one's probably Finnegan. And you can still kind of read the code on it. So he looked that up. He was like, yeah, and he's reading off what it's for. And then the other was like, I think it was an aspirin or something like that. These pills are like partially dissolved. And so he kind of, hedges around about that a little bit. And he said, well, do you have a prescription for, this Finnegan? And I said, well, because that's how I got it, but I don't have the bottle with me. So again, this is all leading up to why we don't let cops search vehicles if at all possible, because stuff gets, it starts to look bad. We get that part squared away. He comes back a few minutes later. He's like, so there's all this is how he's telling me. He said, there's all this like crystal looking stuff in your front seat on your seat. And I looked, and I think this was the moment where I paused and I looked at the guy and I said, this is like a nightmare. This is like I'm having a nightmare right now. I said, it's probably salt from the French fries that I was eating before I got back on the interstate. And I'm having a hard time being patient and calm at this point because it feels like this is spiraling out of control. And I am, and in another way, I'm also kind of like disassociated from the whole thing because it is just like part of my brain's like, I cannot believe this is happening to me. I have not had any kind of like interaction with police since I got pulled over when I was 17 in Gatlinburg for the crime of having a muffler that was far too loud. and I got a ticket that night when I was 17, and I've never had a single like interaction in the field with cops since. No tickets, no warnings, nothing. So, yeah, I'm seeing the comments here. Yeah, I have not been told that I'm under arrest. I have not been told that I'm being detained. I'm just asked to sit in this cop car. So I'm in the back seat with a little dog divider and the dog hanging out on the other side of the seat. So we resolve the thing with the or whatever. We address the thing with the pills. We address the not crystal meth in my passenger or in my driver's seat. And then he comes back with a wad of cash in his hand. And he said, tell me how much money is right here. And I said, it should be $1,000 exactly. I said, it is reimbursement for trees that I purchased for the installation that I did 2 days ago. And he said, okay, very good. And he handed it to me. And I thought that was a good sign. And that was a moment where, I'm sure this has happened more than once, that money could have disappeared and I would have had no way of proving that money was ever there. So I was grateful for that. So at that moment, I'm like, okay, maybe this guy is not going to completely ruin my life tonight. I think that pretty much wrapped up like the questioning portion. I've updated Nicole. She said, text me every 10 minutes. And if I don't hear from you, we're going to start people looking for you, So that was a relief. He gets me back out of the car and he was like, okay, look, here's what we got to do. And at this time, I would say perhaps 30, maybe 40 minutes have passed. He said, I can't let you he's got the little pill box and the bag of hemp. He said, I can't let you take this stuff with you. He said, so I'm going to need you to empty that out here on the side of the road. I said, sure. So I dumped the pills, crushed them with my boot, and just emptied the hemp on the side of the road. Not the baggie, because I'm not going to litter. And he said, okay, you can go. And it was like the record screeching to a halt in my brain for a second. And so I looked at him. I said, I'm free to go. And he said, yeah. He said, just turn on like your four-way flashers or something because you don't have any trailer lights. And I got the hell out of there. Which, and this is kind of what I want to back and forth with you here for a moment. But at that point, I'm like, okay, was it really about safety, like public safety? Because the guy was within his rights to write me a ticket if that is indeed the law, and I was in violation of that. But that didn't happen. Not even a warning. Just, it was almost like all of a sudden he couldn't wait to get rid of me. And I did notice as the last little bit that they were searching the Jeep that both of these guys were on their radios. And I was beginning to wonder, like, did a more interesting call pop up? This is a small town. This is a small county. Did they realize they were just barking up the wrong tree and they were just going to, stop jerking me around? Who knows? But yeah, I think I'll pause there. I got back to the Jeep and I GTFO'd.
When you first told me, I was just like, oh no, like you did a bunch of shit wrong. But as you were talking now, I'm guessing the other cop told him he was fucking barking up the wrong tree. I went through a similar situation with a friend that they got us because a skunk had sprayed like within a couple blocks. And the first cop was convinced that the car reeked of weed. Detained us. We were on the way to the bar. We were stone cold sober. They pulled us out of the car and waited for the canine cop to show up. And I ended up talking to the canine cop because the other guy wouldn't let us go. And the canine cop's like, dude, it's a skunk. Like,
yeah,
the dog ain't going to find anything. The skunk's like a block away. But this dude was hellbent. And it took the canine cop, like, talking him off the ledge to, like, let us go. We were doing nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that other cop probably had a little bit to do with it. Or like Jeremy says, headquarters probably told him to stop wasting time. Or you said they got him more, whatever it was. He didn't even think to write you a ticket for the thing he pulled you over for, which is, I mean, good for you, but it really shows what their focus is.
Yeah. So there was a, that's a good one, Kyle. There was a moment, I want to say it was before he had me standing in front of his car, but it was before he asked me to sit in the back of the car. He said, you seem like you're a pretty stand-up guy. And I told him, like, look this man in the eye. And I said, I cannot begin to tell you how boring my life is. Because he kept, when he kept with this returning to the side of the car to ask me more questions, he was like, so no heroin, no opiates, no meth. And I was like, no, like I am so boring. I said, I plant trees for a living. Okay. And I told her, I was like, I quit drinking in 2018. Like, I cannot tell you how off the mark you are right now. So yeah, it was like somewhere along the way, either he started to get a clue or somebody convinced him to stop. I don't know if it made any difference that he realized that at one point I was, speaking with a lawyer. So completely bizarre.
You should have pulled the TSP expert counsel card.
I should be like, just wait until Jack hears about this. Yeah.
Do you know who I am?
Mm-hmm.
I'll have your job for this.
Yeah. I had to wonder if, like, because I have the business, name magnet on the side of the truck. If he ever took a moment, because I know I would have like some bizarro patient. I'd be like, we'd clear the call. We'd be like, let's go find this person's Facebook profile, right? Because we all do that. And I couldn't help but wonder if perhaps that guy might have pulled up my social media, because I have a lot of it that is set to public, and or even the website, and look at that and think, yeah, I was kind of jerking around somebody who's actually doing a really good job being a human.
They would love me if they pulled up my social media.
Yeah, right. So, and he wanted to ask me, where I've been and what I was doing, and I was like, I've been at this homesteading festival, and he just like shrugged when I said that, like that was disinteresting to him because part of me was starting to think, he could conceivably begin to create this story that I've been around all these, you know, sovereign citizens or people who hate the state. Well, that part would be absolutely accurate, but you know also we're around a bunch of people who do everything in their power to remain as free as possible, which includes not tangling with the cops.
Not get arrested. uh I
Right.
I it's it's infuriating that so everybody always says I just I'm polite, I don't have anything to hide, blah 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 and all of that. Your situation, you didn't have anything to hide, you didn't have anything illegal, but you could really paint a picture that with $1,000 in 20s in the glove box and a quart bag of possibly oregano looking flour, and so maybe he starts thinking, I got the Highway 40 bust. This is I'm taking one for our county. We're going to be able to hold this up. I got myself a trafficker.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
these guys are really good at hiding it, but man, I see it here. The cash, the leftover weed. Maybe you do have stuff to hide even when you don't have stuff to hide.
And that's why, I mean, if I didn't want it to, I don't want to have to be this guy, but I'm probably gonna end up being the guy when we're at these gatherings in the future. We're gonna have little chit chats about immediately exercising your rights, to prevent self-incrimination, anything of that nature. Uh, I am most certainly guilty of being too nice of a guy sometimes. I will go out of my way to avoid conflict, all sorts of situations. And that's what I thought I was doing because most of us are so, we're so programmed socially to try to be forthcoming about things to our own detriment. So uh, I finished my drive home after I got to the next exit and took a little break because I was still pumping adrenaline and all kinds of stuff. Took a little break, rested for a second, stretched, checked back in with Angel, let her know where I was and everything was fine. And although I had called her right away to let her know I was cut loose. And then I found a podcast and then a YouTube channel that was all about dealing with that kind of thing. And I spent the rest of the drive home like drilling it in my head. If I was pulled over or on the street, whatever, approached, quote unquote, detained ever again, what I'm absolutely not going to do. And it's going to be, you just don't talk. You just don't. You provide the documentation that you're required by law to provide, and that is all you're required to do. And everything else is tricks and maneuvering that these officers are taught to do. And you just have to refuse to engage with it. Even if you have to overcome, and this is the hardest part, it's overcoming that socialization. But I'm here to tell you, you don't want to go through with that. Because I was just standing there thinking, because he kept telling me, he kept holding on to that bag. He said, this is a felony. Right here, this is a felony. So I'm thinking, this motherfucker is going to potentially wreck my life. Like I can eventually, I can get cleared off this, but who knows and for how long and how much money is it going to cost and how long is my life going to be interrupted and my home life upended. And I just kept thinking of the number of responsibilities and things that are they're not really burdensome, but they're a lot of people depend on me for a lot of stuff. And so keep all that in mind. If anybody in our audience, our friend group, community group, it doesn't matter if it's the kind of stuff that, John Moody talks about with regulatory authorities come into your farm or come into your food co-op. Same thing. You don't engage, you get everything in writing, and you get representation. I think that's really important in today's world. Like I really didn't think that was something that was super necessary for me, but now I'm reconsidering that.
Yeah, I would have had a tough time every time he said this is a felony, saying, actually, sir, it isn't. It's hemp.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can hold up a duffel bag of dirty underwear and say, this is a felony. I mean, it's not. It's not. And the fact, I mean, what are the rules as far as being labeled? Like, does it have to be properly labeled and stored in a container? Because, I can make up a container that says whatever I want and put whatever I want in it. What is the requirements on the side of the road? If I got a gallon Ziploc of hemp in my truck, that's completely legal. And is it an overreach by the cop to harass me over it when it turns out that I was in the right?
Yeah. So on that note, and a detail that I have forgotten to mention thus far, they carry, at least in this county, they carry these little mobile test kits. And so he takes a little bit of one of those flowers, crushes it up, puts it onto a little slide, pushes a little tab in. I don't know how these things work. I'm gonna try to figure out what these are all about. I think I would probably recognize one if I saw it. I never saw these in the field before, so this must be a newer thing. Now, I've been out of the field for over 5 years now, but he tested it twice, and both times he was like, "Weird, it's not showing anything at all." But he was like, "That doesn't really mean anything. It still could be what I think it is, but it's not giving me a THC or a CBD reading." And I told him, I said, probably because the stuff is so old and it's gone through multiple temperature changes. There's probably not even much active ingredient.
It's fucking hemp, asshole.
Yeah. And that's why I told him, I said, well, I said, for one, it is what I'm telling you it is. And two, it's been through all these temperature extremes. So most of the volatile oils are done.
You can test you can test that white powder for cocaine residue all you want, but it's just my fucking goodies headache medicine.
Yeah. So there was that aspect as well. And so, here in Tennessee, we have it's Delta 8, right? So you can go to any number of locations and 100% legally and above board purchase Delta 8 THC containing products. You can get gummies, you can get flour that you can smoke or make teas with. There's all vapes, the whole thing, completely legal. But now this has me asking, if I had that with me, like if I had like some gummies with me in their original container from the store, how does that cop know that I didn't take gummies containing, Delta 9, which is the illegal version? And for the record, this entire thing is crazy because I think people should put whatever they want in their body anytime they want to, as long as they're not acting in a manner that endangers other people. Period. End of story. I am that level of anarchist. Your body, your choice. I don't care what you want to do with it. Go for it. I think everything should be legalized in terms of substances. So it's because when I was home, I tried to look up the laws and the regulations, and it's gray all the way across the board. So
the cops don't even know.
They don't even know. Yeah.
Especially in the more rural areas.
Yeah.
Like they're not having constant meetings about it. They're not being updated on law changes. They're not being updated in trends. They're not new products that are in the market. The dude probably just got his fucking THC tester and he's like, this fucking thing doesn't work.
Right. And who knows if he was even doing it right. And, so that's one of those things where in that situation, I'm sure that's something that, a lawyer representing me may have just torn apart that particular attempt to, prove that it was what he insisted it could be. So to me, that just calls into question, like, if I were to go down the road right now to the little corner smoke shop and purchase legally some kind of Delta 8 product and got pulled over on the way home, could I undergo the same experience? Now, you darn Skippy, I'm not going to talk to the cops again. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I do not consent to a vehicle search. But this is where it is just sheer madness that we are playing grab ass on the side of a road over a plant.
Pretty much.
For the record, that bag, I hadn't even opened it all weekend because by the time I thought about it at the end of the day, I didn't want to get my stove set up to warm up water to make it. And I was like, fuck it, whatever, I don't care. So that was the great irony, is I hadn't even partook of any of it. So
right. Isn't that usually the case?
Yeah.
Hunter says it sounds like the county owes you 2 quarts of hemp, pain and suffering and emotional distress. Yeah, like, so what is the recourse when they fuck you over, when they're wrong?
I have a feeling that might be why they let me go with no ticket whatsoever, and therefore no real documentation of the entire event. Aside from the fact that they have me, of course, he had a body cam on, so they have all of that face-to-face interaction.
It wasn't working.
And perhaps it wasn't, because we know that they sure do seem to break a lot. And they've got recording, his camera in the car is recording at least the audio of me on the phone with Nicole and my wife. And so you
talking to the dog.
I mean, like, oh, hey, dog, sorry you're stuck with this asshole.
Corey would have been back there, like, playing with the dog, like, oh, take your time.
Oh, no doubt. Corey probably wouldn't have had a care in the world. Yeah. Bless her heart. Yeah, she'd be like, can you let him out? He's in his tiny little cage. He should be out.
You can sit on my lap.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Jeremy's right. I know the dash cam thing is really popular now. I thought about for an instant, like when I first saw the blue lights behind me, I thought about, filming it. But I've seen enough video of cops with them escalating things when they see that they're being filmed. And my intention was to keep things as smooth and calm as possible.
I just reviewed a dash cam that's got 3 cameras on the front. So you can do 3 views. The 2 on the outside will rotate all the way back so that it will show out the window or even to the passenger seat, or the driver's seat and the passenger seat. I think that would come in really handy in a situation like getting pulled over. You could just rotate that one camera over, both of them really, to kind of keep an eye on in the car. And it has a battery to where when the ignition gets turned off, it still works. So like if somebody breaks into your car and your car's off, it'll record them in the car. So I think that might be a decent kind of protect yourself type of tool to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to consider that for sure. Plus there's a lot of times you hear about your car insurance company giving you a little bit of a break on rates if you have one. So yeah, that was pretty much to the best of my memory when, this all happened. As I was very tired. I had not really slept at all the night before. So I certainly was not looking my best. I was a little bit scruffy. I was unshaven. I might not have been the best smelling at the point in the day. So, you add all these factors up, and I could kind of see where the guy starts coming up with a certain narrative that he believes to be true. So yeah, guys, don't talk to the motherfucking cops. Just don't. Just shut your trap. It's not about being polite. It's not about being rude. It's about protecting yourself and your assets, because most of these, I don't really want to group people up here. These men and women that are in this field, they are indoctrinated to believe certain things. And that can most certainly work badly and poorly in your favor.
Yep. They're also working on budget restrictions. They're also working on fundraising. They're also working on all sorts of shit like that.
Yeah.
Hero complex, fucking little man syndrome, you name it.
Yeah. And
They're-
I've watched enough cops jerk around enough people on calls that I have been on, that it's just, had that happened when I was still actively working on the truck, it might have kicked in sooner that I needed to shut the hell up. And for the record, having e-tags, emergency tags on my Jeep, which are still legitimate because I'm still licensed by the state of Tennessee. I still pay the state of Tennessee to keep my EMT license up to date. I don't know if it helped me out or not. He did ask about them. And when I told him that I was licensed, but I was not currently working in the field, he seemed a little put off because it's like, you're one of them until you're not. And there's kind of there's like a cultural poo-pooing for those who leave the field, but stay licensed. So hard to say how that played out in that fella's head.
bastards.
Yeah.
So the next day, I think it was the next day, I'm gonna pull it up here. I was talking about it on my show, and I was curious. Excuse me. I was curious what Chat GPT would say if I asked it. If I asked it here, where was the question? No. Pulled over. Okay. I said, what is the bare minimum to do when pulled over by police? And ChatGPT is made by a human. There's data sets put in, there's parameters put in, and there's definitely biased by the creator. And so I was curious what it would say. And it said, when pulled over by police, it's important to remain calm and follow these basic steps to ensure your safety and compliance. And I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. It said, pull over safely, use your turn signal, and pull over to a safe location as soon as you can. Carrie did that. Stay calm and polite. Keep your hands visible on the steering wheel. Avoid sudden movements. Provide documents. When asked, provide your driver's license, vehicle registration, and proof of insurance. Limit your conversation. Translated into for this discussion is shut the fuck up. You have the right to remain silent beyond providing your identification and documents. You are not required to answer questions about where you are going, coming from, or other personal details. No. Does that have anything to do with my trailer lights, sir? Do not consent to searches. Politely say, I do not consent to any searches if asked. They may still search your vehicle, but this preserves your legal rights. And then the last one was ask if you're free to go. If you're not being detained or arrested, politely ask, am I free to go? Following these steps helps protect your rights while maintaining respectful interaction. I was like, I have nothing wrong with that answer. So maybe ChatGPT isn't the devil.
Yeah, and it's good advice and it's correct advice, and that was essentially what I was told by the lawyer who I'm acquainted with. He was like, "You just need to be quiet from this point forward." But I got the impression he was thinking, "Damn, Carrie, you've already fucked up a little bit," Even though, and this is where the difference between doing nothing wrong, in other words, nothing illegal, can still get you into a pot of hot water. That's what's so messed up about the whole thing. So the less you share, and you have to override your sense of, that socialization that most of us carry around, you really just have to, kind of embrace your inner asshole, and you don't even have to say you don't want to answer. You can just, I found one video of a fella who he handed his documents to the cop. The cop was like, so where are you heading? And he just sat there. He was just looking straight. He wasn't even looking at the cop. He was just looking straight ahead. And the cop was like, and he asked 3 or 4 other questions. And finally he just handed his documents back and just walked back to his cruiser. So I had to wonder, you know, if that had been me, if I had just hushed altogether, he still may have come up with probable cause to search. Because that's it's a super gray area, and it depends on jurisdiction and all kinds of stuff. But the irony is I may have left with just a ticket, but I may not have had that entire drawn out interaction that was incredibly stressful and disturbing.
So, I mean, but what really what would be any justification if he was pulling you over for your trailer lights? Your Tennessee, your county is listed on your license plate, I believe, and you were heading in that direction. It was blatantly obvious from anybody that had half a brain in their head that you were traveling home from somewhere, a trip of some sort with a trailer and tools. And I think, man, if you had handed him your shit and just said nothing, I don't think he's got anything to search your vehicle.
Probably not. You know, hard to say how that could have played out, but it would have helped. It would have helped me out a lot if I had never gone down the line of thought that, if I just explain things, this will be fine. Just explaining things does not get you in any kind of good spot. They are trained to, it is actually legal. It is completely legal for cops to lie to you. It is illegal for you to lie to them. It is legal for them to lie to you in order to try to obtain information. And one of the podcasts I was listening to on my way home gave a very, very detailed account of a case where that happened, where cops lied continuously to a man that they were interrogating to try to get certain information out of him. And I mean, to the point where the man countersued and you know, really, really stuck it to him. But they can do that. And I know they can do that. And you have to assume that they're going to do that.
You got to assume they're instructed to do it.
Yeah.
We got to find out the truth, boys. Protect and serve.
Yep.
When's the last time you had a cop protect you, Carrie? Or do they just come and take information?
I can't tell you how many times. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times we would be on a call with a patient who was agitated to the point of becoming violent, even in the back of the truck. And me and my partner spending a good, 10, 15 minutes, WWF in the back of the ambulance with somebody who's, jacked up for one reason or another. And, finally somebody shows up. And usually by then we've handled it, but yeah, I mean, cops didn't do me any good when my vehicles were broken into at our former home and all of my gear was stolen. I mean, they came out and they dusted for fingerprints and they took a report, but nothing was ever resolved there. I just had to write off all that stuff. I mean, this is an extreme statement. A lot of people may disagree, but I think we can do without them. I think we can actually, I mean, if we're going to go down the road, I think we can do without the entire state apparatus and the arm of control that is there. And I know that's not a road I go down too often, especially publicly, but man, that burned me out. That really burned me out on Sunday night.
Yeah, the sour interactions definitely open your eyes. And then, I mean, as we go at the same time, we're watching all the good the state's doing as opposed to private citizens in the area over by you. I'm sure it's going to happen again in Florida. Time and time again, we see dirty fucking cops or cops doing shit that they shouldn't be doing and getting caught for it. I don't know. It would be interesting to watch it shake out. I mean, I'm a pragmatist, and I understand that I probably won't ever see. Well, I shouldn't say that. The more shit gets twisted up, and the more the writing's on the wall, the more I wonder if it's all going to fall apart. But there's going to be a vacuum, and somebody else is going to just suck right in there. I don't think our state apparatus is ever going anywhere in my lifetime. But if it happened to, it'd be interesting to watch it shake out. I would be glad to be in a rural area. Like
Sure.
I think they'd eat their own. I think the people that can't go along to get along and want to do shit, or they're gonna fuck around and find out. They're gonna eat their own. They're gonna fuck with the wrong people, and it's just it'll slowly take care of itself. Stay out of the way.
Yeah. And that's just one of the and this is a problem in, small towns on up to big cities, is that there's not enough accountability. And when something goes wrong, cops investigate themselves. So it's like, well, sure, that's internal affairs, great, okay, yeah, you guys are going to look after your own, you always do. So somebody was asking, I think it was John was asking, Hunter asked about pew-pews. Another little interesting detail. So he asked me about, is there anything, illegal?
Oh yeah.
And I said, and again, and it's not illegal, but I said my, my weapon is secured in this location in the Jeep. And he was like, oh, I'm not worried about that. I was like, I'm doing, and in Tennessee, it is considered a courtesy to let an officer know if you are armed. And I didn't have it on me at the time, but I had it secured in my bag. And that was one of the other kind of weird things where when he allowed me to no longer be detained and got me out of the car, he had removed the magazine from my gun and had emptied all of the rounds that were in the magazine, just like down into the bottom of my duffel bag, and had locked open the action. And I didn't really see why that was necessary, because I'm in the cop car. I don't know if that's some kind of, protocol or procedure. I could probably find that out. I'm probably not going to bother, but it's like, why'd you fuck with my gun?
Did you figure out why it was locked open?
He
there was jammed or some shit?
Yeah, he told me, he said there's something wrong with your gun. I can't get the action to close. I was able to get the action to close, but
because you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, the mag release had a little bit of rust on it and was a little bit seized, and I cleaned it up the next day and fixed it. So Pippin says he's had his weapon empty before. I don't know. Maybe that's because here's the thing. They make this whole to-do about officer safety, right? Like, this is what it's all about. They want everybody to come back home. And I don't want people harmed or hurt. Like, I want to be very, very clear about that. Even if you are a piece of shit arm of the state, I don't want you to get home. I want you to go home to your family or to your, your sad little, trailer that you live in where you drink beer.
Go home and beat on your wife. Like that.
Yeah, go home and beat on your wife. Go home and abuse your kids. Kick your dog. I don't care. But this is, I feel like then we're crossing. It's like there's this class system. There's this clear divide between those who have the power to wreck your life and those of us who can't do much about it except don't fucking talk and get representation to handle any fallout that happens after the fact.
Yeah, it's yeah. What's the difference between that and them not being there? So I handle my shit on my own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I have to handle my shit on my own right now. If somebody broke down my door right now, hey, hold on, I'm gonna call 911. Wait for the part-time cop that we have in the town or one of the local sheriffs to show up. Maybe state troopers might show up. Can you just wait and let them get here first, please?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I just turn around and fucking plug them in the head.
Right. And I have family members who I am close to recently who have been dealing with some mental health issues, and there have been conversations about, you should go, just send me off to the, to whatever, the facility, just call the cops and have them come get me. I'm like, no, you don't understand how bad of an idea that is. Because when certain statements are made and that results in a phone call that results in cops showing up, it is a complete crapshoot. You don't know who you're getting. You might get the most professional and kind and understanding officer that is on the force. And I've dealt with those folks too. You could get the one that is so burned out, who is even more fucked up in the head than the individual who made the phone call, and violence happens and people's lives are changed forever. I've seen it both sides many times. I think Jack says it, I wouldn't ever point a cop at somebody who I wouldn't point a gun at. That is essentially what you are doing. You are inviting force to show up in your home, in your realm. So,
and the more squirrely shit gets in the world, the more of a crapshoot it is because they're on edge.
They're on edge. They're short-staffed. They're worked to death. They're burnt out.
Your dog barks and your dog's dead.
Yeah. So I know we make memes and we cut up and we crack jokes and stuff, but this shit really happens, and I have been kind of an onlooker for some of this stuff, and I gotta say, handle your own shit. Going through the state needs to be, whether it's a case of, if we've got a case of an abused spouse or an abused child or something like that, dealing with the state to me has to be the absolute last resort. And
I gotta tell you, I feel dirty. I feel dirty because I did that live with Nicole and Sean, and she was mentioning stuff about things that possibly the legislature could do, and with permanent relief and things like that for rebuilding. And I made a couple phone calls, and some phone calls got made to the state apparatus, and it's gonna help. But I was like, man, it made me feel a little dirty.
Yeah.
Means to an end, I guess. Means to an end. But I think that's what the cop says too. So does that make me any better than him?
I am now going to be so much more wary of bringing in any kind of quote unquote authority figure, because they're just, people elevate cops and firefighters and EMS. And I always hated this. When people treated us like heroes, because we are just as messed up as anybody else. I mean, some of us do okay, but a lot of us struggle with a lot of shit. And, we are just as fallible. And I got, so that's one of the biggest reasons why I left the field, was because I kept feeling like people were expecting superhuman responses from humans. And I was just tired of trying to fulfill that role.
Well, and the fact of the qualified immunity and shit like that, and it makes it really easy to make a fatal mistake.
Yeah. And
not pay the consequences for it.
Yeah.
And I think that really builds in somebody's head. I better shoot first. I better act first before I get hurt. I have the benefit of the doubt when it comes down to he said, she said, with my judgment versus theirs. And it really gives them an error on the side of, I don't want to get hurt or dead, which I can't say that I blame them. I don't want to be dead, but I made a choice not to go into a fucking job that I could be dead at every call. So you do the job, and you choose to do the job. And that's the thing with cops and me. Like, I don't, the cops in general, not individual, fuck them all right in the butthole. I don't care.
The entire institution.
But I know cops. I have cops in my family. Do I think they're horrible people? Not necessarily. Did they make a conscious choice to go do something that I think is not right? Yeah. I have more respect for a hooker than I do a cop.
One of the things that we were told very early on when we began doing our driver training for, operating the ambulance, it really drove the point home that if we are ever in an accident, short of just being rear-ended by somebody, and even then, who the heck knows, it was incredibly likely that we would be held accountable, regardless of if there was lights and sirens involved or not, because we have the higher level of training. And that was something that they continue to drive that home. And that, it seems like in some jurisdictions and some, law enforcement organizations, they have the higher level of training. They're supposed to have all this firearm training, how to deal with the public, all this continuing education units that they're required to get every year. And yet we see again and again and again these examples of excuses being made that, quote, the cop was in fear for their life from some little 12-year-old boy who stole a pack of gum from a convenience store, and they shoot him in the back. I mean, this is, people riot over this. We know this happens. I'm not saying necessarily that rioting is the acceptable answer, but you can kind of understand. Like, I understand now what kind of emotional reaction I had to being jerked around just on a very small degree. And then we see that these people who apparently are supposed to have all this training, all this, all these resources available to them, and yet some of them really mess up and they ruin and even take people's lives because they've messed up, and they don't get held to account in some cases. So
and sometimes sometimes it's they messed up. Sometimes I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was front row center for George Floyd and Derek Chauvin and all that shit. That motherfucker, like, so and here's the part about it. And I'm dealing with this on TikTok right now because I posted a TikTok about, I said something about Kamala Harris, so it automatically made me a Trump supporter.
Oh, yes.
It's fantastic.
Right.
So in the George Floyd scenario, that motherfucker that killed that guy, he had evil in his eyes. Like, you could see the evil in that eyes. But the guy also passed counterfeit money. The guy was under the influence of fentanyl. I'm not saying that it was illegal. I mean, it's illegal to pass counterfeit bills. Like, even in anarchy, there's got to be rules about standards of monetary exchange. Can he be fucked up on fentanyl? Sure, whatever. I don't give a fuck. But did it aid in his death? Probably. So when you have an opinion on either side in a charged situation like that, you can't really talk about it. But I think they both fucking suck. The dude was a junkie that beat on his wives and girlfriends and was a piece of trash. The cop was an evil fucking asshole who murdered someone on the side of the road. It's just like Harris and Trump. They're both fucking pieces of shit, and they don't have the right to rule over me. Well, they do, because of where I happen to be born. But I just, they're like, I don't need to be choosing shoot me in the front or stab me in the back. Like, I don't, both ways you're just fucking dead.
Yeah. If there was a way to, like, really and truly, and in a lot of ways, many of us are already doing this, like opting out, right? Like, that was the great irony, was that I was at an event where, to some degree, most people are looking for ways to insulate themselves from this kind of issue. And then I was boneheaded and not thinking, and complicated matters for myself. So going forward, I would certainly, and if I have to be the one to do it, I'll be the one to do it. But when we have gatherings and festivals of this nature, I think we'd be good to have a little more of little sessions, I mean, we could quote unquote make it fun. Doesn't have to be some guy on a stage telling everybody how to fucking do shit. It could be, somebody plays cop, somebody plays,
put me in the cuffs,
tree hugging. We're not going to get into that. You can keep your kinks to yourself, but, tree hugging guy in a Jeep driving down the road, minding his own business. And we can act it out and, do whatever we need to do, and just help people just verbalize, not verbalizing every damn thing that comes to mind. Just help people just really, really reserve those rights. We're in an era right now where I think just about everybody, regardless of what side of the political aisle they're on, everybody feels like they're being trampled all over. And I think we need to remind folks by reminding authority figures who is actually running this show. And it's not arms of the state.
That ship sailed so long ago that there's been enough generational turnover that I don't think people even conceptualize the fact that they're not in charge of us.
Yeah.
The whole system has spiraled so far out of control that I think if you asked 10 people in that just graduated high school, let's say, or that age, who's in charge in this country? Like who works for who? Are we just at the whim of politicians and that's why we elect them, or do we elect them to represent us? And they answer to us. I would think at least 8, 9, 10 out of 10 would be like, oh, they're in charge. They make the laws. They tell us what to do. Fuck that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Hunter made a good comment here about getting a little card or a sticker, and I'll either print one or make one or something or whatever, but I might make it into just a little acronym. So if I am to be pulled over again, there's not a sticker that says, fuck the police or something like that, but just a little,
that always goes a long way for keeping them calm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a good idea. I think we need to so many of us have done such a good job of isolating ourselves from this kind of business that we forget it's still out there and it's still happening.
Right. You never know. I shouldn't say we all. Man, I drive the speed limit. I mind my own business. I'm not in a hurry to get anywhere. I try to make sure my lights and shit I don't give them any fucking excuse.
Yeah.
To start the conversation. And when I feel like it's inevitable, I cut it off. Like I told you about them following me to the gas station, and man, I'm out of the vehicle. Now I'm not in the vehicle. I'm out. I'm talking to you. I'm engaging. You're in your vehicle. I'm out of my vehicle and asking you why are you following me? You're obviously. Oh, I couldn't see what state your license plate was from. Is that a requirement? I didn't know. Maybe it was. I was asking him questions. I don't know if it helped or not, but he left me alone. And he waves at me now every time he sees me.
Probably because he knows you're not the kind of guy to be fucked with,
I don't even, it's just that I don't, I know I'm not going to be meek and sit back and be nervous and get scared and say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That's Corey. She just says that's me. And I don't need to deal with their shit. Like you said, we all know that they pry. They are always looking for something. I've gotten actually pretty lucky in a couple of situations where I was definitely in the wrong, and made it through because I shut the fuck up. And I only answered what they said. I had two police officers push me out of a situation where I might have been stuck. Maybe I got stuck there because there was something wrong with me. But they asked what happened, and I just said I got stuck. And they asked where I was coming from. I said I was just driving down the road, and I got stuck. And they pushed me out and told me to drive safe on my way home.
Yeah.
So I probably probably saved myself a trip to jail that night by not volunteering shit.
Yeah. You just, I guess, going forward, I would just assume that any law enforcement agent is going to attempt to make my life more difficult, and do everything I can to limit that kind of engagement. Like I said, it had just been so long. I mean, I was off my game, frankly. So, and to the that Smith County officer, deputy, whoever the fuck you are,
Here they come after you, Terry.
oh man, I had to bust through a gate. I got my trailer lights. So I got home late Sunday night. Monday, I went and picked up a set from Harbor Freight. I ordered a quick adapter for the Jeep so I didn't have to splice wires. And by Tuesday, I had it all plugged up and working. I've even got side marker lights. So
did you look it up? Are they required?
From what I can tell, for at least the state of Tennessee, everything I find says that for trailers over 80 inches of width, which makes sense because at that point, the average vehicle, you're not going to be able to see the taillights. So my trailer is 60 inches wide and 8 feet long. But now it's got pretty lights, courtesy of Harbor Freight. So,
take those lights off the trailer and go back and drive back and forth through Smith County till some motherfucker pulls you over and to say, per statute.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I don't have any of my hemp in the car, officer.
I kind of tried. I didn't try real hard because I've got 10,000 other more important things I need to be doing. But I tried to find, like, if they had a roster posted online. I found they have one DA and like 10 assistant DAs in Smith County. Because at one point he was on yes, and that's another detail. So like I said, it was a long story, lots of stuff to it. At one point he was on the phone with the DA. Before he put me in the back of the car, he was on the phone with the DA wanting to know. He was basically like, here's what I found, what do you think? And who knows what kind of answer he got, because I wasn't privy to the other side of the conversation. But, he was trying to be real thorough. That was for sure.
A fucking DA was probably smoking dope saying, does it smell any good?
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully that DA was having relations with that officer's wife right at that minute. That would have been great. So, those organizations are frequently incestuous as all get out. At least that was the hearsay around here. It just seemed like there was just this constant turnover of EMS and fire and police and divorce and marriage and infidelity and repeat. And that was another one of the reasons why I got out of it, because it was such a toxic environment all across the board.
Corey says nursing is the same way.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Angel worked in that field too, pretty similar to what Corey does. And
nurses, doctors, and back and forth, and divorce and remarriage, and great.
Yeah,
you do you.
Yeah, hookers go through fewer sexual partners than the individuals who work in those fields.
Dude, that might have been a t-shirt winner. I respect hookers more than cops.
Sure. I can get down with that. They're not hurting anybody, and when they do interact with somebody, it's in an attempt to make them feel good about themselves. So
consensual. I mean, they admit that like 60% of the time they just talk anyway.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about some trees and stuff if you want to, now that we've talked about how much I hate cops.
Yeah, man. What's I got to get out there. I got my truck back today. I was actually on my way out to water the trees when the truck took a shit. So I got to go out in the morning and give them each a drink. But talk about what we put in out there. This is all your ingenious plan.
Yeah. So I picked up. Well, I'm not really going to remember numbers, but I think 2 different kinds of plums, a peach, a nectarine that are both self-fertile, 1 fig, and then 3 more figs provided by Tim Riley, a bunch of herbs, hardy hibiscus, several blueberries, a couple of, I believe they were raspberries or black raspberries, a couple of apples. Those apples are probably going to be more for grafting, but that's okay. We'll have rootstock to work with. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of.
Nectarines,
Yeah, the nectarine,
cherries.
cherry. Yes, and yeah, I think a Montgomery cherry. So, and then a bunch of herbs, and I've got a list going of more stuff that's going to go in the springs. I'm propagating stuff like crazy out here. Yeah, so we got together. I got in Thursday night, and then Friday morning when I was having my coffee and my quiet time, everybody had helped tote all the trees out to the nursery site, which is a big help. And I just started kind of playing around with arrangement, with the main goal at this point just being have enough space between everything, space that you can move around them and take care of them, and we can always fill in later. I like to kind of start broad, and we can always fill in later. And then Friday, got our crew down there. I felt like we had like 7 or 8 people. We had quite a few people helping. Did a quick 101 on how to plant trees that have been in pots for 3 years that are super root bound. So we covered, untangling the roots, root pruning, proper planting depth, just kind of those little details. And it seemed like I turned around and everything was planted in like 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was quick. It was good.
Yeah. So got cardboard around everything, got wheat straw and pine straw down just to make it easy so that you don't have to worry about trimming right up on those trees. So yeah, they're going to be happy. We kind of worked with the microclimates a little bit. So we're kind of pushing shrubs to edges. So shrubs will fill out the edges where that creek is. The stuff like the peaches, the nectarines, which are a little more in the center, those will kind of be the tallest ultimately. I don't think they're technically dwarves, but we can certainly prune them to be smaller for the sake of management. Yeah, it was great. I mean, we had it knocked out in no time at all. Everybody was a great help, good attitudes, because we were starting to get hot and swampy that day, and got them all watered in. So I expect them to do well.
Yeah, they're looking a little crispy. When I was out there on Wednesday, that's why I was heading out on Friday to water. It'll be Saturday.
They'll be okay.
Yeah, I got the hibiscus trimmed, and next we're gonna open up an area for some fodder trees on the other side. You're gonna keep filling in inside. Like the layout kind of completely filled that area, which is perfect. And then the other side across the creek we can utilize for propagation area and stuff. So I'm excited. Take the Ride was wondering what variety of apples work well in Tennessee. Only ones doing well in northern Alabama are the Arkansas Black.
Yeah, Arkansas Black is another. That is a good one for up here. Also, the Liberty cultivar and Wolf River. Those two are relatively. I'll throw this in the notes real quick. Those are relatively resistant to the cedar apple rust. But even then, because I have cedars maybe more than any other tree out here, a little bit of cedar apple rust is normally just like it's just a blemish. It's not really an issue if it's for your own personal use. Now, if you're wanting a market garden, maybe a bit of a problem, but those two do great. I put some Wolf River out at SOE, and if those, I did not get a chance to check on those trees, but if those trees are still hanging out, you could probably get some scions for grafting at some point.
We didn't really put a cover crop down there. We're doing more cardboard and choke it out. We're eventually going to fill in all 7 layers
Mhm.
of the natural space there. So we're Corey. I was actually reminding her today that we need to get a comfrey root planted at the base of each tree, which
Yep.
will come up. It'll protect that immediate area around the tree with the leaf growth. We'll have chop and drop opportunity. But yeah, it just kind of shades down that the base of that trunk and keeps that. Comfrey doesn't get much that grows under it once it's established. That's for sure. It's a nice
Yeah.
layer there. And we put in the herbs. We put in some shrub layer, and more to come in the spring to fill that in. Right now, it's kind of get it as best we can to manage it until we can fill all the space in.
Yeah, yeah. For a good while, cardboard and whatever carbon we can get a hold of will be the cover crop. Eventually, I like to have a blend. So, we've kind of got our work cut out for us in overcoming all the stuff that's going to want to keep sprouting, all the tree, because there's a ton of stuff that the squirrels have planted and things of that nature. So we'll have to kind of keep up with the good dose of cardboard for a couple of years, and then as that breaks down, as things fill in shade wise from the trees and all, we'll do more herbs. We'll probably do some clovers, and oh yeah, and I forgot I did a little wildflower section, so
Oh
I
yeah,
did a
yeah.
dormant seeding of super duper blend of all kinds um, of most actually it should all be perennial wildflowers. So these are things that will, we seeded them because we are now late enough in the season. They're not going to try to sprout yet, so they'll get wintertime stratification, and then they will start emerging in the spring. And then as those fill out, drop their seed, they'll be just hopefully patches of wildflowers all over the place, as well as kind of a pollinator support structure.
I'm excited to mess around with the wood mulch from the article that you sent me.
Yeah.
I had really started to use. We have so much slash there, slash that's already on the ground, been on the ground for God knows how long. And then the new stuff that we're taking while we're cutting stuff down. And you sent me an article about making wood mulch out of just the slash, the stuff that's laying around. We're naturally going to be making it around the edges of our paths by stacking all the slash there, the deadfall along the edges of the path. But I'm excited to go up under some of those trees where it's completely, there's nothing growing. It's completely mulched itself in and broken down, and really take a shovel and fill the cart up with it and see what it looks like, and then go to a different area where you can tell that it's just crumbly. It's still together, but when you can't even pick a branch up because it just breaks in your hand, and really start bringing that down and mixing it in. And then as we add in the mushroom log stacks right there at the top, I mean, there's so much fungal activity on that property right now. It's unreal. And we're just going to supercharge it by having all those mushroom logs right there in the nursery. I think that it's just going to eventually be, I mean, the soil, like you said, the soil there right now is pretty damn good for
Incredible.
just kind of weed eating it down and cutting some trees down.
Yeah, that was some of the nicest soil that I have ever dug in. I am used to hard pan clay with about half an inch of organic matter on top in a lot of places up here on this hill. And this was just like a blend of loamy with, it's a little bit sandy down there by that creek. It was, yeah, I mean, it was a joy to dig in. I hit that first round with a shovel, fully expecting the shovel to bounce off like it does around here anytime I go to dig, and it would just sunk in all the way down. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. This is my kind of tree planting site right here.
Yeah. Food Forest Farm was wondering, how about wild chickens or wild muscovies for pest control? Corey and I, we did the farm in Minnesota. We did the homestead. We did the production birds and all that shit. We're kind of resigned to the having the animals and letting them just kind of do their thing. If they want to come and be put away, we got a safe spot for them. But if they end up down in the nursery, and it works for what you got going on, I mean, they're out there for themselves. Like I have no problem with that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, there's Alan Booker was really good at talking about this. He's a brilliant man, and he was talking about, you breed animals for the job you want them to do. So if you need chickens or Muscovy ducks or whatever, guineas, that you need to kind of act as pest control, deal with the slugs, deal with, potato beetles or whatever the case may be, and they're smart enough to get up in the trees and roost at night where they're not going to get murdered by, a coyote or a raccoon, then great. And as long as most stuff in there is established enough that it can handle a little bit of chicken impact, or preferably, the ducks, I mean, yeah, why not? Let those animals do the work.
How are guineas when it comes to destroying plants? Because I hope to have a bunch of guineas again. And I wouldn't
have enough ticks to eat out there. So, I'm not real sure. I never had them myself. I've been on a lot of farms that do, and I don't seem to notice them like digging and making a dust bath site the way most chickens will.
Right. I mean, the chickens will destroy plants. Like they'll just mow them down. And I don't recall our guineas like heading for the garden. Yeah.
That could be a very good fit for that site, especially since most guineas tend to be a little on the wild side anyhow. They have more of their, they know everything wants to eat them. So they watch out.
They're scared as shit.
Yeah. So yeah, that might be a good option to consider going on down the road.
I mean, we put chickens and ducks and stuff up by our place, and then just throw a little guinea hut down in the nursery and let them kind of figure their shit out.
Yeah.
I'm open for experimentation for sure. I'm really with the install on Friday, and then stepping back and looking at it and remembering the thought process of the elderberries that we planted that are now irrelevant, really, and saying, screw it, let's push this out further, let's do this bigger, and do it right. And Tim was on board, and you were on board, and between the three of us, I think we got a good thing going there. And sitting back and looking at it, it's exciting. It's exciting to think about what we just did. It's exciting to think about what it's going to look like after spring planting, and after we add in the mushrooms, and after we add in the fodder trees. And it's really exciting to think about what it's going to look like in 5 years.
Oh yeah, for sure. Mine's going on 3.5 years from the time I first planted trees in my food forest. And like, it's starting to come together. Like, it's starting to feel less like I've got these little placeholder things going on, and more like a system with a certain flow and its own little set of patterns out there.
And the more it the more we do with it, the more we talk about it, the more we plan, the more we work, the more I'm thinking permaculture design everywhere there.
Sure.
The weekend after we installed the nursery, and we talked about it, and we joked about it, because you're like, oh man, it'd really be really nice if we had some pots to do some cuttings in, to mess around and experiment with it, because we got to prune these trees anyway. We might as well see if we can start some stone fruit starts. And I'm like, well, we're going to be emptying a bunch of them when we plant the trees. And you're like, oh, right. But just thinking about the whole mindset, as soon as the work days were over, I was already thinking about the fact that we're going to have overflowing water coming from the cabin and back down to the creek. And not that I put that there intentionally to use it, or I think that I can create energy, like I can make more than it takes to pump it up there. Like I understand the whole concept of reaction, loss of energy. But if it's going to be running down the hill anyway, what can we do with it? Let's not just erode a fucking path down the hill back into the creek. Let's run it through some wicking beds. Let's Sean mentioned gray water. Since we won't be there using it constantly, we're not going to have a constant flush of gray water. But if we have a constant overflow, we can maintain a gray water system when we're not using it to keep reeds alive and keep things wet. But we can also, we're going to have 3 gallons a minute. That's just a shit ton of water, or 2 gallons a minute to play with.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of people, they want to have like everything figured out in advance when it comes to a property like this. And to some extent, like, you need to have a few crucial aspects. You know, you really need to have your access figured out and your water figured out and have a general idea of where you can make structures. But like, this is just like Tim's property. This is just proven that you can kind of go about this in a little bit of a free form way. Like, I have ideas, you have ideas. Tim's just kind of game for whatever. He's like, wear it out, guys. Do what you think works. You know, he kind of knows where he wants, like he wanted the cabins and that sort of thing. And, you know, so far, none of us, we've not shot ourselves in the foot on any of this because we've just, we've been thoughtful about the process without absolutely obsessing over what the finished product may look like.
Oh, right. And it really, a lot of it came down to Tim's natural path theory. It's not Tim's natural path theory, but something Tim and I talked about when he bought it. Like the first time we walked into it, Corey and I had cut a path up to the top so they could walk to all 4 corners of their property. And we just followed deer trails, or what made sense is we're slashing our way through it with a machete, blazing a trail, and we went where it naturally took us. And I told him that day or the next day, and he's like, yeah, we talked about natural path theory in universities, building buildings and not sidewalks, and leaving it to see where the students walk and then put the sidewalks in there. That's a lot of what we're doing.
Yep.
Where is it easiest to traverse? Where are the flat spots that are there that make sense? Like, oh, this flat spot's this far from this one. That makes a good cabin site. Now, do we have an easy walking path through it? Okay, well, we do, but we got to go through this deadfall. So let's cut a path in there. And if it doesn't work, let's put another path in. But really just what makes sense. Following the deer has been a godsend. Like, you find a deer trail, you know that's an easy way to get from point A to point B, where he might not be going to the same place you are, but they know the easiest way.
Yeah. I mean, and I think maybe that's something that doesn't get expressed as often in the realm of you know, permaculture consulting and stuff. Is like, for instance, I was on a site visit with some folks yesterday in the county east of us, and as we were kind of wrapping things up and I was, you know, finishing my notes and making sure I'd address their immediate questions, she said, well, you know, between now, because they don't live here full time yet, she said, between now and spring, as we come here to visit, what do you think we should be doing? And because we talked about, like, there were a couple of trees that were kind of in danger of causing problems if they were to come down. I was like, well, we'll probably need to get those trees down because they're, you know, they're leaning, they're sick, they're dying, all that. And I thought about it a little bit, and I said, really, just walk around. I said, just walk around, figure out where your feet want to carry you, what catches your eye, what captures your interest. I talked a lot about, I said, see what the critters are doing, see what kind of songbirds are hanging out here in the wintertime. We have a lot of songbirds who stay here. Those are great partners in your food forest. And generally speaking, good to have around. And so I just really encourage that interaction aspect of the land. And this client, she really appreciated that, and she got it too, which was really nice. Like, she wasn't coming in with the, I'm going to impose my will upon the land. She was like, how do we work together, us and
it makes
and
it easier when you're not fighting it.
Yep.
We choose kind of areas that are already not overgrown for these cabins, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier to keep it maintained.
Yep.
Kind of like some of the places I was telling you where the trees have broken down enough where they've got a layer of mulch there, and so it's just nothing grows through it. It's perfect. It's making soil, but it's also really nice ground cover for a cabin yard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, so
yeah,
it's a great project, and I'm glad to be doing it.
What's up?
I said it's a great project, and I'm really glad to be a part of it. It's been
It's I feel really lucky to have got to land to just it happened. Like it just, and a lot of the things along the line for Corey and I have kind of lined up like that, not necessarily with our RV trip, but just in our relationship from day one, just the way things have laid out. And the fact that Tim was like, yeah, I bought a property kind of near Camden. I mean, that's pretty general when he says that. And through word of mouth, through networks, whatever, I found this spot we're staying at through a community member that was staying here and leaving about the time we wanted to be here. And I sent Tim a message. And I was like, well, how far is your property from Saltillo? And he's like, oh, no, like 12 miles. And I'm like, I think I'm probably supposed to stick around and work on this project. Like those kind of things, when they line up, they line up. So I don't try to fight them either.
Yep. That's been my experience. I work a lot off of instinct and synchronicity, and it's not steered me wrong.
So, but yeah, so I'm happy. I'm happy I got my truck back. I'm happy I get to go out there and water the trees tomorrow and do some work and probably bang out some mushroom logs and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's all good. I'm happy. My life is kind of back, not in chaos for a day. We'll see what tomorrow brings. I'm sure. I can't go too long, but yeah, good evening, Chris Dixon and Haas has been popping in and out here. And what else you got? Anything?
I mean, I'm just getting back into the swing of things here after, being away for about 4 days. And, I have several kind of ongoing projects. I've got a lot of notes to write for this site visit that I did yesterday. I'm excited to be working with them and starting to think about, I've got some logs out here that need to be cut up and a roof that needs to go on a wood shed, get that squared away in the next couple of weeks and get my firewood in the dry. We're cooling off, which I'm happy about. And it just makes life and work a little bit easier. So just kind of starting to think a little bit about nesting mode, rest time, recharge a little bit. And just
but before that, you got something coming up in November.
I do have that. Yeah. I'm going to be teaching a tree class at Nicole's at the Holler Homestead, home of Holler Roast and Living Free in Tennessee podcast. We're doing that on Saturday, November 2nd. We have titled the class Partnering with Trees on the Permaculture Homestead. And this is not an opportunity for people to come pay money to plant trees for me or for Nicole. This is going to be an exercise in principles and methods and reasoning. So aspects like what kind of trees to choose for certain microclimates or for certain uses like fencing, and how to, so we're going beyond just like how to plant a tree. Specific choices, specific trees for specific reasons. And so it's going to be like, we're not necessarily all going to be parked looking at a PowerPoint. I'd rather sit in a cop car than make a PowerPoint. And I'm dead serious. But there'll be a little bit of that. There'll be a little bit of quote unquote classroom time, but most of it is we're actually going to be on site. And we're going to be showing, and asking the students as well, instead of me just telling you I would do this and this is why, I would ask them, this is what we have in mind for this use of the land. What choices would you make when it comes to choosing trees and or shrubs to fulfill that role? So kind of like a mental exercise. We're going to make it a mental exercise. And then there are some trees that need to be planted. And I have offered to either do those later that day. It's going to be about a 5 or 6 hour class with lunch. I'll either plant those trees later that day. And people want to hang out and help, they absolutely can. But that's something that me and Tactical Redneck will take care of.
So who is the class for? Is it for the homesteader? Is it for the designer? Is it for both? Is it for anybody?
It's really anybody. I'd say anybody who has reason to add more trees to their property. Whether
So
you
everybody.
are doing it, yeah, really everybody. I mean, definitely for the homesteader, definitely for people who are into, kind of digging more into permaculture principles, and if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed about how to make these decisions, especially if you want to start thinking a little more about silvopasture or agroforestry and that sort of thing, some of what I'm going to cover is going to cover that too. And if you want to deepen your understanding of working with microclimates, because Nicole literally has like 10 at least different microclimates on that property, we're gonna get into that as well, because that's one of the things I like to nerd out on. So
Is this going to be only in person, or are they going to end up documenting it and selling it as course later?
I don't know. I told Nicole I was cool with that if she wanted to, but I don't know if any of our videography people are going to be available for that. So, that's a good question. I'm going to ask her, because I have somebody in mind who, if they're available, may want to get a tree class.
I think I know who that is.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to him. Yeah,
He'd be super excited.
yeah.
So, but yeah, November 2nd, Lancaster, and hopefully a paid class to follow. That would always be good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm glad we did this. We got on here. We got to hear your story and any reminders for people of what can go sideways, even if you don't have anything to hide, even if you aren't doing anything wrong, or even if you are doing something wrong, it can get compoundedly worse and be a nightmare real quick, just by what seems to be, or because the cop's in a bad mood. So it's always needs to be heard, and we both agreed that we don't hear it enough in our circles. So
yeah, so you'll be hearing it from me now from time to time. I might just drop into the chat here and there and just
shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up when the cops are around.
Strong Roots Resources everywhere on the internet just says shut the fuck up, and everybody's like, what's wrong? Why is he so angry?
He was such a nice guy. What happened?
What happened?
He got pulled over. Yeah, preserve your freedoms, guys. We can't do all this cool stuff if we allow ourselves to get jerked around. So
yeah.
You don't have to be that jackass who's like, I know my rights, but know your rights and exercise them. It's really freaking important. There's a lot of people in the world who don't have these rights, and can get arrested for posting a meme. So enjoy your memes and don't talk to the cops.
Yes. Post memes about not talking to the cops.
Yes.
All right, man. I think we're gonna wrap it up and roll out of here. And man, we'll do it again sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
No problem.
Shining in with the at the end of this longest night. I can see the light.